Welcome to Vintage Weights PGH. And here I am in my backyard, and I'm trying to lift this keg that has water sloshing around in it that weighs about 80 pounds over my head in as many different ways that I can think of. This is probably the easiest method here. You have an offset grip on it. The lips of a modern keg, on the rims make it easy enough to grip. But if we think back, barrel lifting, which predated kegs, has gone way, way back in history. Oldtimestrongman.com, John Wood's website, that has a wonderful amount of information on it. I'll drop a link to it. It has a great article where he posits just some pretty logical historical context. Whoa, you can see that water sloshing around there. I almost fell over on that one. Now I'm trying a bit of a squat. Boy, that's awkward. I need a little more mobility work. Anyway, when it comes to what he was saying on oldtimestrongman.com, he was talking about how the Bavarian beer halls, how way back, if you think about Oktoberfest hundreds and hundreds of years ago, how they'd have to lift those kegs to serve those patrons and serve those people. And there I go with straight overhead lift. This was much more difficult than the offset grip, and I managed to get a couple reps with it, but you can see how I'm staggering around to try to keep my balance. So throughout history, odd objects, like I mentioned on Home Gym History of Strongman Implements, odd objects were relatable. People knew they weighed something heavy. People knew that a barrel was a heavy object. So when a strongman loaded it up, or in this case, swung it up over his head, which would be a lot harder with a 200-pound keg. But I was pretty proud of this one, with a little kettlebell swing action and then straight up and down press of the 80-pound water sloshing barrel, and stuck the landing. But when strongman loaded it up, so for example, even Thomas Topham with the classic harness lift, that predecessor of a modern day deadlift, where he supposedly lifted, I think it was 1,800 pounds. Here's an image of it. You'll notice that the weights are barrels that are in there. And that's because the crowd could recognize, holy cow, that's a lot of weight. Now when it comes to modern day kegs, of course we've got World's Strongest Man competitors that are throwing kegs and doing all kinds of different things with kegs. And about 30 years ago, Brooks Kubik put out one of my favorite books, Dinosaur Training. And in Dinosaur Training, he talks about how fighting a keg up overhead, a barrel up overhead, is just an amazing workout. Here I am, and I'm going to fail on this one. I'm trying to do an Arthur lift that would then transition to having the keg on my shoulder. But you'll see I get kind of stuck on the transition part. Oh boy. Almost had it, and it tips over. Now I go into some attempts at one-arm lifts, and these, spoiler, are all fails as well, because as it turns out, sloshing around 80 pounds was just a little too much to handle with one arm. I wanted to try to do maybe a bent press, something like that, or maybe a push press up overhead, and it just wasn't happening. But Brooks Kubik was onto something. That this was at the end of about an hour of training, and I spent 5 minutes in the backyard. That's how long this video is. And I was soaked with sweat afterwards. I mean, I was just worn down fighting with this keg in all these different ways. And this isn't even an extremely heavy keg. This is relatively light compared to what other people might do with it. I will give myself a little credit, though, that although it's only 80 pounds, the water sloshing around makes a huge difference. I have expensive collectible weights, barbells, and all kinds of dumbbells and stuff, but when it comes down to it, this everyday keg is one of my favorite implements. Go out there, get yourself a keg, do it at your own risk and all that kind of stuff, but just have some fun. Old weights, new gains, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe.